interested in them. And that would be, what are the kinds of things you could do, okay, after you've introduced yourself, after you say, I want to tell you a little about the ATO, but first tell me about you. And really all you want to do is to listen to them. And then they will be interested in the fraternity if you do that. And then they will seek you out. So you're thinking you have to sell the fraternity? No. You don't really have to sell the fraternity. They're looking for someone where they fit in, where they feel like, bottom line, people are going to help their survival, short-term and long-term. So when you act interested and you say, like, yeah, well, tell me, where'd you go to high school? They come, this is their freshman year, right? Wow, yeah, let's see. And try to think about something about that high school. In other words, what you're saying, maybe without saying it is, but you can say it too, is tell me more about that. Yeah, say more about that. This is also great for picking up women, but we're not going to talk about how to use it there, right? So act interested. And ask a question, because what we usually do is say, we talk about us. They say something, we talk about us. So they try to bring it back to themselves, we talk about us. So what you do is you keep handing it to them. You keep saying, oh, well, tell me more about, about high school. How'd you do? What made you interested in coming to STEM? Oh, I had this biology teacher and blah, 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 blah. Oh, that's cool. So what do you think you'll do as a career? So if you ask questions, make sure every question is about them. Because, they're going to have a literature, right? You have literature on ATO. They can read that. They know about fraternities. Okay, so, using this, are we ready to pair up?
They're paired up.
Okay, they're paired up. All right. So, you're going to introduce yourself and start the conversation. So, in an interview, like in a police situation, we would always say, hello, officer so-and-so, and thanks for coming today, whether they wanted to or not. But anyway, so what you're going to say is, hi, I'm so-and-so in the ATO organization, as you can see, and, what do you know about ATO? So you start talking about that, but then you get into their world, into their personal stuff. And how do you see a fraternity benefiting you? And they go like, oh, so you're helping them think how the fraternity is good for them instead of you doing what all the other fraternities are doing. What do you think they're doing? What did you do in the past before you knew about this?
I'll just start bragging about what you do, what we've done, what we've accomplished.
This is ATO.
And they're going, and they're going, yeah, I just heard this 5 times and I don't remember your fraternity from Sigma Kaiser, whoever. But they're going to remember the guy in the purple shirt was so interested in me. I was special to him. Yeah. He thought I was interesting. I think I might fit in over there. The other guys was just sort of, we do this, we do this, we do this. We're cool. Okay? So, go ahead and get in your dyads. That's 2 people, right? And then get started. And then I'm going to walk around and Rick's walks, because I made Rick do some of this with my classes. So,
Melissa,
yes.
are we going to talk more about these psychological tests later?
Well, why don't you ask me questions about it?
All right. What can you test for?
Well, I'm testing for a bunch of things, and I have a big handout for you guys.
For the awareness.
It's this. Do you want to know a little bit about what the test is?
No, I just want to know what it tells you about a person.
Okay, well, I think the most important thing for your purposes in the fraternity is, number 1, whether they're going to fit in the fraternity. And I can tell that by looking at the other guys' personalities. Also, number 2, is there somebody with a troubling personality, which is a combination of several scores. It's not one score that tells you that. And number 3, that's why I asked, what do you want? You want people with high grades, that's conscientiousness. You want people who are loyal, that's conscientiousness. You want people who are reliable and dependable, that's your conscientiousness score. So here's the thing though, that 50% of this you're born with. We just found this out in the last 2 years. 50% of most of these, the 5 factors that we're testing for, openness to experience, which is related also to intellect, and it's the opposite of tradition, ironically enough. And then C is conscientiousness. E is extroversion, right? So you want some extroversion, but introversion isn't a bad thing either. Agreeableness, that's an important score I'll discuss in a minute. And neuroticism, which is how much you worry. But you don't want a guy who's a 0 on neuroticism, right? Because he's not going to worry about anything. So, but you don't want somebody who's an 80 either. So it depends on your purposes, and of course men and women are different. But I'd say from what I've heard, what you want is somebody who's not low in conscientiousness. So the average population is at 50%. But you've got some high flyers in this group. You've got some high flyers also in the alumni that I've tested. And I don't know who's here, and I don't want to know. But conscience is definitely related to going to class, to making good grades, to showing up for meetings, to showing up for your activities, your volunteer activities, for doing your work ahead of time. All of the things that make people a good potential worker in the future as well. But also make for a good group member, in any group. So I'd say conscientiousness is number one. Now, it's not correlated significantly with leadership, which is also important, right? Or future success. Unfortunately, not necessarily the guy who works the hardest. If he works really hard digging ditches, they may say, he's such a good ditch digger, we don't want to move him. Right? So you have to learn to be political. We've all done that, those of us who are older. There's also some combinations of scores. I want to be careful about telling them too much. But with the alumni, I have a big handout about this. So go ahead, what other questions?
Can you test for somebody who's revolting against authority?
Well, definitely highly conscientious people are generally rule followers. They're rule followers.
Okay.
And so that's a good thing. And it depends on the age. At this age, a high extroversion score can mean a person can get in trouble. Just because it means they like to be out a lot, and mine's like a 90. Like, I would not be a good member of your fraternity at your age. But, at my age, I don't know if I've gotten more extroverted because this test wasn't around at your age. But, we want to be careful we don't get somebody who's unconscientious and terribly extroverted. Because they're not going to go to class. They're going to really hurt your grade point. So it's, there's an interplay between each person, between each member, between all the scores. It's a little complicated. It's not where you can say, okay, here's the perfect score. Although I have derived the perfect score. A range of scores that you might want to look for in testing. This is just to help y'all's job when you bring people in. Yes?
Later on, you're going to tell us a little, what to look for, if we give the recruits that test,
You're not going to see their test.
Okay.
And I don't want you to tell them. It'd be better if you didn't tell them anything about the test, because that's going to skew the results. Right.
How do we get the results, to look at it or whatever?
With what I do, I'm not going to give you the results. I'm just going to say, this guy, George had the idea of like a 5-star, 4-star, 3-star, 2-star, 1-star recruit. So I developed a template for that, saying, here's the scores they should have on each one to be a 5-star. And it's like, that's almost ridiculous. It's like the Olympic champion. And then the 4-star, if you can get some of those, and you have some of those, but those are pretty rare. If you get a 4-star, that's good, or even a 4.1, that's good. And then 3 stars, sort of your average. And then, if you can help it, I wouldn't take anybody below a 3-star, really, if you can take it. So I can tell you what their stars are, but I would rather, it would be unethical for me to tell you guys, oh, this guy has this score, this guy has this score. I would say I do not recommend you getting this guy, because there are combinations of scores that tell us about sociopathy. But because they love to lie, if they lie on every question on there, I will be able to tell that, but it won't make any other sense to me.
John, if I could, the concept that I've had on this thing is you guys go out and find some guys, you're recruiting them, you're building a bond with them. Like Reese talked about this morning, you guys have around 4 or 5 times, they've gone on a river trip together, and you're thinking, hey, this guy, we like him. That's when you're going to call me and say, hey, Rico, we got somebody who'd like to have you come take the test, just like you did. We'll meet somewhere, and the ploy is you're just going to say, hey, there's this little thing that we're doing. We're trying to find out what kind of characteristics fit with us, what personalities blend in with our group. If you'd be willing to take this little test, it takes about 30 minutes. You've all done it. So it takes about 30 minutes, and then we'll know how well you fit in with our group, and just leave it like that. And I'll turn, Melissa's gonna talk to the board about is a proposal on what she'll charge to do this. But in theory, if we get like 10 of them at a time, I'll do this little matrix, listing those scores, give it to her, and then what she's gonna do is respond back and say, candidate number 33 is a 1 star.
I don't think you want this guy. Yeah, I'm not gonna tell you yet, I'm just gonna say, you know, from my perspective, I would not want this guy having access to my, you know, my future.
That's why that's the only thing I was concerned, like, if we were gonna do it, or if we're still gonna go through, I said, I
But
don't know.
we'll
You will not be given a test.
We'll know what star they are if they take the test.
You'll know what?
What star was
You'll-
that, or how many stars?
Well, it'll be up to them, it won't be up to me.
Okay.
Yeah, this won't be up to me. So those are questions not for me.
We still gotta work all this sort of thing.
We'll work with this.
I was
This is a brand new thing, it's never been done before, you know, I think it's kind of exciting, and I think it, you know, you could get famous or something if I went to school and did some research on this, and then all, you know, fraternities and other groups started saying, hey, it's a good idea, we want to do this.
Yeah, how did the ATOs in San Houston have an 80-man chapter that's in everything and doing everything?
And they win all the awards and all the, you know, interfraternity stuff. How
And you
great.
don't get kicked off campus.
Yeah,
And all of a
don't
sudden,
lose your charter.
then all of a sudden recruiters are coming to San Houston and they're going, hey, we've heard about this ATO group, we sure want to check them out, and you're applying for a job. Oh, here's a member of ATO, you haven't heard about that group. That's the long-term hopes.
When you evaluate this test and you say, I'm not sure about this guy, what percent are you sure that your assessment is correct? 85?
Well, it depends on if they answer the questions honestly, so I have to
Yeah.
start with that assumption. Well, it's a highly valid test. So if they score very low on conscientiousness, I'm probably about 95% sure that they are not conscientious, maybe 98%. Because this test is actually correlated with the genome, with DNA now. This test is correlated with that. And 50% of your personality is correlated with the genome. Now, that being said, let's say your parents are going through a divorce. Let's say your girlfriend broke up with you the week or the night before you took this test. It's going to show up. So, you know, that's something as a part of the test we need to ask people, have you had any sort of traumatic incidents lately? Or say you got drunk and this, you know, this happens to people and you got a DWI and you're just like, you know, you're terrified about it or you're going to have to go to court. I mean, that's going to show up in one of the scores on this. Probably just one of the scores. So if I see an outlier, I see a score that's really high, you know, I'm going to look for comments down there where it says, you know, this is going on in his family, his grandfather just died, something like that. So we'll definitely need to be asking people, you know, is there anything going on? You know, so I can be looking for that. Because the neuroticism and a couple other scores together, it's a combination of those scores. And some of the scores, well, let me get into that in a minute, is what points to a sociopathic personality. Because these people, you know, they don't have remorse, and they feel a lot of revenge if they get angry at you for whatever reason. They have a lot of vengeful, you know, personality. They're also highly exploitative. This isn't the only test that shows that up. They're highly entitled and highly exploitative. So, you know, it's certainly something you don't want. But, yeah, and with some, like conscientious, some of them are definitely, like, sort of, that one's sort of a standalone. The neuroticism and some of those, you have to kind of consider some of the other factors. You know. And, you know, some people are just worriers. They're really smart, they're good, solid people, but they're just worriers. And women tend to have higher neuroticism scores. I don't see real high neuroticism scores with guys. Let me get you up here, his hand.
Larry, maybe you can go ask, how do we make this test unoffensive? I mean, if I'm just approaching from the standpoint, I'm just a guy just started school, and these guys come up and say, hey, you know, you're a good guy, we hung around with you. Do you mind taking this test? It's like, why do I need to take a test?
Yeah, you're right. You know, and I don't know how you're going to do that. I mean, what I would do is say, you know, I don't know about you, but I always think something that has higher standards appeals to me more. Instead of we're taking anybody. So I would do these things if I were you, and I'm not you, but I would want to see if they're freshmen or whatever. I would want to see a transcript of grades from either, if they're not a freshman, I would want to see a transcript or their high school grades or an SAT score, something, number one. Now, I can tell you that's probably going to be directly related to conscientiousness unless they're working a full-time job, and that could be different, or there's a trauma going on in their lives at that time. But I would ask for that, I would ask for a criminal arrest record, and I would have them take this test. And so I would present it as a package. Okay, there's 3 things we require. You know, and if you need to say, we've had some bad experiences, and we've sort of learned the hard way, and so we're going to do this because we're particular about who joins our fraternity.
That's good.
Yeah, we're just to kind of answer.
So, and I think too, you shouldn't give this test as a standalone thing. I don't think that's ethical or right at all. I think you need to see a criminal arrest record, because a really good sociopath, they could blow through this test, but probably not at 18 or 19. Probably somebody our age could do it. But so I would want to see all those 3 things, because a sociopath is going to have an arrest record a mile long, and they are criminally diverse. They're not just going to have, you know, done one thing like maybe some of y'all had, and you're like, oh my God, right? Because everybody does that. Men, not women usually, has done something. But, you know, if they have like 15 things, and that's how they look, they have a rap, these people have a rap sheet. Unless they've gotten away with it. They have a rap sheet. So
Do you just ask, hey, we'd like to see your criminal record?
I think you ought to have a piece of paper, and it says, you know, recruitment process, and when you get to this point, okay, when you get to this point, maybe don't tell them up front to where they already have a buy-in. And then say, okay, here's the deal. This is kind of new, you know, and if you act defensive about it, they're going to get defensive about it. You know, what I learned is if you just say like, okay, here's the thing, and we've all taken it, but, you know, there's this test, and we've all taken it.
Yeah, that's kind
Because you've
of.
all taken it.
That's kind of what I was going to say to answer your question. We've thought about it a little bit, and we're kind of, you know, we're a fraternity, you know, and not only are we a fraternity on campus, we're ATO, you know, so like, if they don't want to take this test to be a part of our chapter, if they don't want to do just this, you know, it really doesn't even take 30 minutes.
It's
If you're
10
doing
minutes.
it right,
It's a
take-
10-minute test.
Yeah, you should take it fast and so it'll be more accurate. And if they can't do that, then I mean.
I don't think it's a matter of they can't. I think Melissa's got it right, that if you combine it with some other activities, but to just hand them a sheet of paper that's like a psychological evaluation, it's like, whoa, hold it, man, I'm not crazy. And why, you know, if you think I am, why are you even asking me to join the fraternity?
Also, for it to be valid, it has to be, you know, I've trained Greek how to give the test, because you want to watch them take the test. They need to, you don't want to think. You know, you want to take it as quickly as possible. I mean, they're a slow reader, they've got to read the question. But, you know, you want them to, that's how all these tests, it's online, you know, all of these tests are, they're quick like that, and you want people not to go, okay, what's going to make me sound good? But just like, oh yeah, that's me, yeah, no, that's me. And I've taken it, for the last 7 or 8 years, and unless I'm going through something real traumatic, like I have, and I'll see my neuroticism score go from a 14 to a 43, but other than that, like none of my other scores ever, you know, change at all. So over those years, and I've changed careers, I mean, I've done a lot of different things over those years, you know, been divorced, so I've had some things happen. It's pretty stable because it is correlated with your DNA. Your DNA don't change. Like it might mutate right a little bit, but it doesn't change.
Just make the point clear, because
I didn't get to his question. I skipped you.
We're not okay. He said it all the time. But to answer what George is saying, I promised George that I wouldn't have any undergraduates out here that didn't pass muster with Melissa. So everybody that's out here is taking this test. So John, you're the last one to take it. Did you feel uncomfortable when you came by and sat down and did I do all right?
I just kind of answered, I don't know, I hardly even remember it, to be honest.
Yeah. If you read the question, I would like y'all to take it, and you don't have to give me the results, but so you'll understand what I'm talking about, because you'll see, like the questions are like, what does this mean? But
I'd like to take it, and I'd like to know the results, as long as you guys don't blackball me.
you can print it out.
No.
But the point I'm making, guys, is if you have a prospect that really seems to be interested, that you've made a little bit of a friendship with, he's met some of the other guys, seems like he's really interested, is it gonna be an issue to say, hey, you know, we'd like to get a couple of references?
I don't think it's, here again, I go back to, I don't think it's necessarily an issue if you do it like Melissa said, where you formulate a plan. It's something that, as you said, the chapter is one of the first to ever do it. You've got this criminal record, you've got these other things that tie in with it, so that you've asked some legitimate questions that I think would be fair in asking. I mean, it's just like if you're going to employ somebody, you put them through drug testing and everything else, and I don't see a problem with that. But if you just plop them down here and say, here, we want you to take a psychological evaluation, the guy's going to say, I just think it might be a little offensive.
You know, it all gets back to salesmanship.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, don't have any experience, but hell, I'd say that, you know, this is a requirement and national, it's a new thing, whatever. I wouldn't say, it's a compatibility thing. You know, I wouldn't say, this is psychological evaluation. If you say it, you're out of here. You know, that kind of thing.
Well, you've got to, and she's made a very interesting point. If you're going to hire somebody, you ask for a resume. A resume is going to give you a lot of information, including references.
Exactly.
Okay, so the other side of that is, if you go to buy a firearm, they're going to ask you if you're a fugitive, or have you ever been criminal, you know. And if we're as exclusive as we're trying to get to be, I don't think that you should throw. I think outside the box and what's required of the next guy that's going to be an ATO.
I think this is the wave of the future with liability. I can't believe it hadn't happened already. I'm also a landlord. I have 11 rental properties. I did have 26. I've been doing this about 12 years. And I'm telling you, when somebody comes to me, if they don't want to give me their entire credit report and credit score, reference the last 3 places or every place they've ever lived, and where they work, and a paycheck, a copy of their paycheck stub, I won't even, you know. Now, I don't tell them that right at first. So I wouldn't, you know, when you recruit them, they come by your booth, don't say, oh, we're going to need you to do this, this, and this. Heck no! You're not going to do that, right? Because it's not a job. But it is maybe like leasing a place. So I'll go like, yeah, sure, let me show you the place. Now, if I get a bad feeling about them, I'll say I need this, this, and this. And you know what? I won't hear from them again. And I've learned to trust my instincts. And you will get, your instincts will get better as you get older. I know all these guys have great instincts. And so if y'all were there at the recruitment thing, you'd be like, no, not him. Then we probably wouldn't need this. But you know, at your age, it's just so hard to know. Because it takes years and years for you to sort of build up. Like, you know, that it's that.
And we're only talking to them for a few minutes.
Right. So yeah, don't tell them that. Don't tell them that till later, because number one, you're wasting your breath, because a lot of them are going to be interested in, you know, the wild party or fraternity or where their dad went or wherever. So yeah, just get them interested in what you want to do is get the biggest pool you can, and then you can start eliminating them. So you know, I guess what I thought was like I was teaching you. I'm happy to talk about another thing because it's more interesting to me, but. To talk to you about how to get people interested in being in the ATO, and then you can weed them out. That's really the easy part. But I would definitely have 3 or 4 criteria, you know. It's like, you know, what people say to me is, I was telling Rick a little story, and I said, I had a friend, and he said, I don't know how you rent your property. It's such good people. They stay. They always pay their rent. He goes, I'm so jealous. You know, this person just left in the middle of the night, blah, blah, blah. You know, and I didn't get enough deposit from him, and I go, well, let me come look at your property. And, you know, it looked okay. And I said, well, what are you charging for the property? And he said, you know, I'm charging $450 a month. I go, that's the problem. He said, oh, is it too much? I go, no, it's too little. If I came in here and you said $450, I'd say, there's something wrong with it then, because that's not enough. There's something wrong with it that you're not asking more. So I think when you ask more and say, well, we have these requirements, it ups your value. And the guy did raise the rent, and he rented it a week later for $100 more a month. So, you know, I think you don't sell yourself short, you know. Be who you want to be, and then require everybody else to meet your standard. And, you know, it's somebody you don't know, so you have to be picky. You know, you're marrying this person. Think about that. Kind of.
I think in the time that, like, we're actually, like Rico was telling us, you know, we're kind of know these people a little bit better, these recruits a little bit better before we actually ask them to take the personality test. And so I like how you related it to, you know, being a property owner. If you have something that they want, and this is the only thing standing in the way, or hopefully at that point we have something that they want, being in our fraternity, and this is the only thing standing in the way, you know, if they, you know.
I think you kind of get them hooked, and they're like, okay, what do I do now? And you have a sheet, so you're not going, well, because you might, if you're a little, and I'll tell you what, if you're not confident about it, you know, let somebody else do this, because they're gonna have instincts going like, oh, he acted kind of funny about that, now I feel kind of funny about that. I had a sheet that said, we need an application, we need this much money, if you have an application fee or whatever, this is kind of how I do with rentals. Then we have little check boxes, okay, here's a copy of your criminal record, here's a copy of your grades in high school, your SAT score, you can give them like options, 3 things. Oh, and then you'll need to go to Rick Hannah's house, he's a great guy, he's so funny, and take this little test, and take you 10 minutes. It really shouldn't take more than 10 minutes. And I've got, it's, you know, if you've got a computer, I can give you the link, you can take it and print it out, and it gives people information about themselves that's useful, and I don't mind giving the people the information. I don't think we've done that, but and see, I don't want to know. I don't want to know anybody's names. I just have numbers, so I don't know who's who. Or I've seen Rick's, and
I've already told.
I still don't have
Were
your
these
question.
were these questions put together specifically for interviewing potential pledges to this fraternity, or is this a standard test?
It's a standard
Have
test.
you talked to any other groups about doing the same thing, any other fraternities or sororities?
Nope.
We've got our.
It was sort of, I came out here and I heard the story of what happened out here, and I was like, this is horrible, you know, this can't happen again. And Rick and I just started, I said, you know, gosh, I guess in fraternities, I mean, you know, the groups, because it's a power thing, it attracts people who, you know, aren't ideal. And so I said, yeah, you ought to have them take a personality test before they come out there. Rick goes, yeah, that's a great idea. I was sort of kidding.
This seems like a no-brainer to me. I don't see any downside to this, and everything's an upside. If they don't take it, don't want to take it, you don't want them anyway. If they take it, then you get the answers that you're looking for, most likely.
Well, they should know that when they take this test, that it's going to tell us or her or the evaluator what it evaluates. I think it can just, hey, it's a compatibility thing.
Yeah.
Just say we wanted to take it.
Well, and it's called,
Compatibility thing, that's all it is. It's put out by national. If you, you know,
It's just,
I like that.
it's just not a big thing.
yeah.
It's just normal business.
Because some of
this is not a
it
psychological
is, some of it is
evaluation.
that they might not, they might not be they're crazy. It may just mean they're not a good fit, or this isn't a good time in their life. You know?
Can you tell us if you're true or false?
And you're going through this and you're comparing
Listen a minute.
I don't want to do it. One of them is going to go out there is concept and all that stuff. The other one, actually, how do you think more legit process? You know, within the process.
Yeah, more of a real process, and not, he's a cool guy, he's gonna help our
They're actually paying
football
attention,
team.
like,
You're paying attention to the details.
One thing, I mean, I like the process and everything, but about like their high school transcript, I don't know if it's different now, but I know I had to like go to my high school to get that.
The school won't give us that.
That would be,
Yeah, no.
I mean, it's a great idea to ask them for that, but I don't see a way that we can.
The school won't let it happen anyways.
Yeah.
No, I thought I see opened that up this year.
The only way.
Yeah, I don't know, you know, figure out, you probably ought to figure out some background, I don't know how to do,
The
I
only way
don't
we
figure
could,
out
I
that,
think,
so.
is, like she said, ask them personally to go and get their transcript, but that, I don't know, that'd be hard to do, guys.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been hard for me to try.
Don't they have their own? I mean, like, I know our high school, they're using Blackboard now, so they have that, at least for previous year. Probably not that good. Well, I mean, for everything, it's like, at least it's.
What about their, what do y'all take, SAT, ACT, your school?
Yeah.
Either or.
Use that.
See, yeah, I mean, so I don't know, y'all are gonna have to decide that, just 3 or 4 things, and you could give them options, like this, or this, or, you know, that's not my specialty, but I would, you know, I think having a process of these 3 or 4 things we look at is important. I don't really even know how you get somebody's arrest record.
well, how about a questionnaire, you
Look
know?
that up online.
You know, questionnaire. I'm leaving a questionnaire. You know, did you play football in high school, or what sports did you
You
play?
know, that's a great idea. Another kind of question.
What was your grade point average in high school?
Like having to fill it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the question, were you really serious about your studies?
That's a great idea.
And that would be, hell, I had a C average, and I wasn't serious at all, you know? Anyway, but I went to Copperwell, I went to the Army, and then to college, I was damn serious.
I bet you were.
Anyway, I think about a questionnaire.
Oh, that's a great idea. So see, it has some steps, and you know, they check it off. Just like when you're in college, I mean, everything you do from now on.
Yeah.
It's like something right, like when they come to their informal, something I wouldn't take.
I'm just throwing that out. I don't know what to tell you
Is
as
it-
far as
this
other
is-
stuff besides.
That would not be you know, the last week of rush or whatever, that would be the guys that you, that you recruit all year long.
In the package that Roger has, because I've got him hooked up with Raymond, there is a sample of an information sheet. And that was one of the things in Good Guys that they talked about, was having a questionnaire, a little form to fill out, and ask for 2 references. There again, if a recruit couldn't tell you about his coach or a teacher that could say something good or bad, I'd be a little flaky on that guy. Somebody that's worked hard, just like Melissa's
Yeah,
talking
you could
about.
have a couple letters of reference.
Yeah.
Another bigger schools, I'm pretty sure you have team law attorneys, they require letters of recommendation.
I was thinking we could even, ask for it.
Sorry.